All right, super excited to be here this afternoon. We've got a special guest on here with us today. Dr. Dustin here with my beautiful wife, Erica, Dr. Lindsay, and our special guest, Mr. Brian Galke. This is The Vital Wire. All right, Brian.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
I'm happy to be here.
Super excited to kind of dive into what you do. It's very unique. Well, maybe it's not unique. We heard you speak this morning. I think we all do this kind of innately and don't realize it.
Right.
But so tell us, Brian, just what is it you do?
I stare at people.
Yes.
People watch.
I just creepily stare at people's faces until they finally break down. No.
That's what I feel chiropractors do too.
That's exactly it. That's right. We're figuring out what's wrong with you, yes. So I was certified by attorneys 12 years ago on how to understand people based on their facial features.
Okay.
And it's what took me from being on the help desk to regional vice president of the sales, because once I learned to get out of my own head by focusing on other people, your world changes.
So cool.
And so that's what I speak on. That's what I teach on. I want to help other people who are introverts like me. And most people have lost the art of communication because we're so busy with our smartphones and smartwatches and everything that people are like, I won't even answer the phone. I'll just text back, So, yeah.
So true.
Yes.
Well, my first experience with you, so my wife met you at a speakeasy in Arizona, and all I heard was you made your wife's crying on stage, and I'm like, who did this to her?
Yes.
And then I come to understand a little bit more about what your intentions are, but I love what it is you do because, like you said, the whole communication and how we interact with people, no matter what you do in life, there's always a better way to interact with people. And it really hit home with me too, because it's like, how can I serve people better and speak to them better?
Exactly. Well, look, you guys have something that people are coming to you and we're scared, right? People are coming into your office. Nobody wants to go to any type of medical on their own, right? I mean, we always think of it as bad. What's going to happen? What's the worst case scenario? And there's a nervousness. And the whole thing is, unfortunately, most people who are patients for anything feel like, oh, I'm just a number. Yeah. I'm just a person. They just want my money, and it's insurance, and it's all these things. So when you go in, you have to put someone at ease, and let alone the pediatric chiropractic side. I mean, your people are giving you their most trusted thing in the world to come in with. So how do you build rapport? People came to you because of reviews, right? But everybody, when you say doctor, what most people think of, they think of like malpractice, and the problem is the medical community provides so much, but it's seen and viewed so poorly because of cost or, that type of thing. So
Dr. Lindsay had a great, it was about 2 weeks ago, and we're starting to see more of these infertility cases like we saw. But to see how she connected with somebody, it's like now after hearing you speak this morning and knowing a little bit about what you do, I'm like, now I want to go back in reverse and see like, what did you apply that you don't even know? Like, how did you speak to her correctly? Because she felt so heard and she felt so. Dr. Lindsay, what was one of your takeaways this morning? Like,
I feel like I fell into that category. You talked a little bit about people that can be chameleons and match people really well, and I feel like that's something I do a lot. I can really read someone and try and match their energy or match their mannerisms that make them feel more comfortable.
Yes.
If you know me, you know there is no such thing as a stranger to me, and I'm not afraid to share too much information with you.
And what's going to be fun about this is as we go before we wrap this up, we've got a little bit here yet, but we're going to have you do what you do and demonstrate on us. So hopefully, if you're listening to this, you're going to want to flip it on and watch it. It's going to be on every podcast platform.
Right.
So, but we're going to have you do what you do a little bit. But what since you've been doing what you do, what are some of the interesting things you're into, or who have you helped, or what are some of your most?
It's all across the board. So the first people, why sales is always the first one, because companies have budgets, right? So sales teams are always the ones that reach out first, because as more and more things become a commodity, you have to have a leg up on something. And so, and when I say sales, everybody's in sales. You have to bring in patients. Realtors have to sell houses, you name it. So anybody who has a driving desire to increase their numbers. Those are always the first one. The second one, and probably I think you heard me talk about it on stage, the pandemic one was the looking for love in all the wrong faces.
I love that. So fabulous.
Because people would send me pictures. What is this picture? What is that picture? And I got tired of doing it. So it's one of those things of if somebody asks you enough times, you create a process for it, right? So I just recorded some videos, super cheap, did it
Can
at
we
home.
share that link?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just looking for love and allthewrongfaces.com.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's a little bit long, but you can get there from subtle skills too. But yes, so, but it's because I want people, when they go on a dating app, we can read things, and it's like I said in there, it's people are gonna put on their resume the best things, like, oh, top salesperson, whatever. But what's powerful about it is looking and saying what facial features do they have and what do I have. So for example, y'all both have fuller upper eyelids, right? So you're we people, which is fine. And then, but if you're dating somebody who has no upper eyelid and they are used to a lot of solitude time, but you want to do a lot of we things, you can, the person who doesn't have a lot of upper eyelid can feel smothered, and then the person who has a lot of upper eyelid can feel rejected. So if you talk about those things up front, so like I don't have a lot of eyelid, right? And so if I date somebody, I would have to say, hey, and then once I explain what I do, it'll be like, based on your upper eyelid, you're a we person. But I don't even have to say that. I could just say, hey, I know what their face says. So I'd say, I can tell you're kind of like a we person. I saw it on your pictures, whatever. I need a lot of solitude. So there's times I need to just do things by myself. It's not a reflection of you. It's just that's what I need to make me happy. And then at the same time, I would know that I would have to adjust and make more of an effort to do we-related things with that person. Versus if I was to date somebody who also doesn't have a lot of upper eyelid, all right, you go do your thing and I'll do my thing. If we happen to get to do them together, cool, but it's not a requirement.
So intriguing to me.
Yeah.
I just love everything about it.
Yeah, it can help a lot of people in so many different ways, whether it is relationships or maybe, and like you said, sales. I mean, that's one of the first things that comes to mind for sure. But as a leader in the workplace and being able to manage and lead a team, like if you have the heart and desire to lead from the right place and get to know your team, and that's very much me. It's like
Absolutely.
some of the things that you've already talked about.
I'm leaving you out.
No, you're good.
That you've already talked about this morning, it just helps me. And like you said, you also said too, it's not from a manipulation standpoint.
No.
It's how can I communicate with people around me and my team better.
Right, 100%. So I gave the example on stage. If I go to a foreign country, I learn basic phrases because I know what I want, but I need to know how to get it from the other person, or how to speak their language so I can get it. Like if you go to another country, you don't know how to say bathroom, you're in trouble, right? So learn to say bathroom everywhere you go. But, and I learned please, thank you, you name it.
You're not just pointing down.
Exactly. Doing the dance. Yeah, exactly. Una más cerveza. I know. In Polish, it's piwo proszę, more beer, please. Yeah. But that's all it is it's learning to speak somebody else's language. And it's, again, you kind of know what you're looking for, but you don't know how to talk to the other person. So if, like, you watch a movie from another country, then you watch subtitles because it's in your language, right? Or the other option is you have to learn that other country's language. So, yes.
And that kind of brings up a good point, and some of the things we can recognize. So you talked about more, what happened during COVID, and we got very much less social.
100%.
And so, but you also made a couple good points about even like a little bit, talk about being lip readers. That was very
yes. So
by nature.
The mask thing, we won't get into political debate about masks. The downside of anyone wearing a mask, no matter who it is we're natural lip readers. And so for people who are watching the video, if I'm doing this, they can't hear me as much because literally my voice is muffled, but we still read lips. And so what I was talking about is my daughter's 5. You can tell that kids aren't learning as fast as they were because they're in class and they may or may not have to wear masks, but they can't read the teacher's lips. And so the way that kids learn to make sounds when they're younger is by watching and mimicking somebody else's lips. And so if they can't see them, then they can't mimic those things. And so that's what I was talking about, is it creates a stunted kind of learning category. So it's stunted my daughter's growth a little bit. I mean, she's still a brilliant kid, but she knows numbers better than she knows words because she, and sound. So they're now working kindergarten extra hard to like, T, 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 and work on the letters. Well, if I say, okay, T, 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 you can't see how to make that shape, right?
That is so true.
Yeah. And you think about it, it's hard too. It's muffled. So the amount of servers when places opened back up who had to pronounce through their mask, I mean, they were losing their voices on the first few shifts because they're having to overpronounce through the masks and everything. So what I like about analyzing faces is what you can see is what you can read. So if they're wearing sunglasses, okay, well then you can't see the eyes, but you can still see ears, you can still see lips, you can still see eyebrow, forehead shape, you name it.
So cool.
I think that's so interesting. And I noticed too during that time seeing clients that came in as new clients at the beginning and you still couldn't see their nose or their lips. It made it very hard for you to recognize them, to remember them, to commit them to memory, unless they had a very distinctive voice or eyes. And then sometimes they change their hair color and you come in and you're like, okay, who are you?
You're talking about me, right? It's my hair color.
Yeah, it was purple last time. I don't know.
You're absolutely right. And we're so used to, you know who suffered the most during this time? People who are sarcastic like me, because you can't make a sarcastic, like when you say something sarcastic, you smile and people know, oh, you're joking.
Yeah. Right.
And when you do it sarcastic and they can't see your smile, they're like, you're just an a-hole. Yes, it was definitely tough on some of us. So yes. But you were bringing up how else can it be used? Team building, team bonding. So you saw the people who came up, and it was somebody they knew that when I was reading and they were analyzing their faces, they're like, yes, and they're nodding. But there's sometimes I'll go to events, and I call them paid practice, like corporations will hire me for like happy hours or president's club, and a couple will sit down or coworkers will sit down and I'll analyze everyone's face and they're like, yep, and I'll mention something. They're like, I never knew that. So it's not just learning this for sales or something, but you see people that you've known for years differently when you learn how to analyze their face, right? And we all kind of understand it. I'm going to get kind of weird, and people on the other side of this won't understand it, but look at the circles here, right? The reason they put circles in this environment is because if it was all squares, we'd feel trapped. But in rounded things we're attracted to, and so that's why rounded features, you know, they're more welcoming than angled or pointed features. So yes.
I didn't even think about that, but it does feel very inviting and like okay to even be in this, because it is like a kind of a thinner hallway.
Right. But you got outside light, it's rounded features. If that was all like just triangles, if it was triangles, you'd feel like, ooh, really weird. Like would you rather pet a Doberman or a bulldog, right? Like we're trained to like, and if you look in Disney characters and everything, they draw angled features.
I was about to bring that up, because that was something you mentioned. And the first time you said that, I was like, you do know right away.
Oh, absolutely.
Who is the bad guy or who is...
Which is just so fascinating that you can use that. And the way you were describing it with artists was so intriguing, because I'm like, oh my gosh, or like authors.
Yes.
You don't think about that when you're reading it, but immediately you know the character through all of the descriptions of their facial features.
That's why when you watch a movie that's been based on a book, you may love it, but if they put the wrong character in of who you pictured it in your head based on reading it, you're like, this movie's crap.
So true.
Yeah.
And I don't know, have any of you guys done any like illustrations, like trying to draw goofy or trying to, it's all circles. They teach you to draw it in circles. So I didn't even think about it like that, because like I'm very much aware that like everything is done, anything that's done well is, everything's done by design.
Yes.
Like, and for a reason, very intentionally.
Right.
So I didn't know, like I didn't think about it like that, but I'm like, there's got to be a reason. And so you filling me in on that is huge.
Oh, so, okay, let's think about witches, vampires, pointy noses, points on the teeth, right? The crowns are pointed, you know, it's, so like even Game of Thrones, look at, and this is completely off, all the thrones with all the swords angling out, right? It's meant to be intimidating, and that's the thing. We base those things and understand those based on what's called physiognomy, and that's basically what face reading is built upon. And it's been around since the Greeks. So they used to literally do autopsies on somebody afterwards and look at the muscle structure underneath it. And then it used to be taught as common school. And then it kind of, the royalty didn't like the idea that the common person understood the other person. That, and are you guys familiar with what phrenology is?
No.
I'm not.
Okay, so it's bumps on the head. You've probably seen the little statue inside the mall somewhere where it's a shaved head and they've got little squares on it, and it's kind of like, if you've ever seen how they put on a cow, like what this different meats come from, it's like that, but on somebody's head. Yeah. And so you see those in the mall. Well, it's like if you got a bump here, you're a criminal, they would put you in prison. So it was about literally not trying to understand, but judging you. So it was like, oh, you got a bad bump here, you're a criminal. And what happened is when they called that a science, and it's not a science, you know, body language isn't an exact science either. But when phrenology got kicked out, so did face reading, which is physiognomy. And it's still taught to attorneys for jury consulting. It's still taught in some European schools, but it's very rare. And that's how I met my mentor. Was he was an attorney. He ran across some books on it, and then he actually wrote a book, and he would go and he'd go to a local fair and say, I'll read your face, you know, if I get it right, you can give me $1. If not, it's free. And thousands of people and hundreds of people, he would just read and analyze their
my
faces,
goodness.
and he was confirming what he's learned.
Yeah.
And look, it's not 100%, but you saw today, I mean,
Yeah.
people came up, and if I was to break down everybody's face, they would all been like 10 minutes per person. But because there were so many people in line, I had to go faster. So I was looking for what's different on everybody's face. Yeah.
So what is it Brian is trying to achieve? Like, what are you looking for? Who are you looking to help? But what is kind of the mission of this for Brian?
Sure. There's a personal one, and then like as me as a person, there's a parental one.
I love that.
The first one is I was an introvert, and there's nothing worse than being in prison in public. And what I mean by that is
Wow.
you're out and around people, but you don't feel like you belong. And you're literally in the prison of your own mind. You're overthinking your thoughts, and I'm there. I'm still there sometimes too. Like I said, I came and hid when I first came in. I waited for somebody to recognize me, and I'm like, hey, but that's where I live. And then the other part is I see where we're going, and I don't want my daughter in that world where people don't talk anymore.
Gosh darn.
If you guys have watched, it was on TV, and I was in a hotel in Indiana the other week, Surrogates with Bruce Willis. Have you seen that movie?
No.
It's where everybody basically goes and they put on VR gear, and they live through robots instead of themselves.
Seen the
Yeah.
previews for
metaverse.
it.
Yeah,
Yes,
and we're
goodness.
basically nobody leaves their house, and they all sit around and they don't talk to each other because everything's done through some type of technology. And if you watch, and here's a Disney one, if you watch Wall-E, what is the future, people? They don't talk to each other. They just stare at a screen, and they're fat and out of shape and
Yeah,
everything else because they
little
don't leave and
thing.
exercise. And face-to-face communication is an art that we can't lose.
Yeah.
And if this helps people talk, because it creates that connection when you're looking somebody in the eye and talking to them, then that's what I want. And when I met my ex-wife, she said, what do you want to do for a living? I said, I want to be paid to travel the world and teach people something, because it's the win-win. And so like coming to this event, I get to hang out with all you guys and sharing what somebody shared with me and what changed my life, and I can help change somebody else's life.
That's super good.
That's awesome.
So
Yes.
awesome.
So we've got a little over 10 minutes here.
Sure.
Anybody else have anything, or do you want to jump into some? You
Let me
want to
jump in. I
like,
think
jump
that's
in?
more
I think Dr.
powerful than
Lindsay's over there like,
anything.
come on.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So what we're going to do is let's go ahead and hopefully, like I said, you guys can watch this. We'll get you some links on how to connect with Brian. But I'm going to let's start with Dr. Lindsay.
Right.
Kind of go through your
Let's see
thing
if I
very
was-
simply.
Accurate on my assumptions about myself.
Well, I would tell you the thing that surprised me that you said is you have a flatter upper lip. So usually that is people who don't like talking about themselves, and you said you will actually overshare.
I do.
And that's surprising. Now, can you do it off the bat, or is it only once you feel comfortable with
It's
people?
only once I feel comfortable. I
Okay,
will
that's-
say, like I can match, like I said, I can match the energy in the room, but my initial go-to is like you
To
be in
focus
the,
on them,
yeah,
right?
to be in the corner.
So yes, people with a flatter upper lip will always ask you about you because they don't like talking about them. So that probably helps with the bonding process with you, because the flatter upper lip, you're not going to immediately start talking about you. Well, that's good, because everybody wants to feel special and important. So when you're asking them about them, it helps out quite a bit. Now, add-ons or natural?
Oh, add-ons.
Add-ons, okay. Do you know why? Why you
Because
give them
I don't have very long
Well,
lashes,
yeah, you have
and they're
red-
very blonde.
to? Okay, yeah. Are they blonde or are they redhead?
Oh, they're blonde.
Blonde, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason I ask is I know this is totally off subject. This is my ADD. If you have red hair, you have a higher tolerance to pain and everything else. So you almost have to like double up on meds for everything.
I'm
So
strawberry blonde, so I
you're
know a
strawberry
little
blonde.
bit about that.
Okay, all right. Just a curious factor.
Got some red in there.
Yeah. So then eyebrows straight, get straight to the point. Don't waste your time. That's good, because if you just go off on all these different subjects with patients, they're going to be you're trying to help them. So you're like, how can I help them the fastest, right? Ask them the questions that are there. I got sidetracked on the eyebrows. The eyelashes. So eyelashes are consensus builders, and that's why we have them added on, because when they flutter, they draw people's attention to your eyes, right? And that creates eye contact as well.
Oh,
So that's why you learn, about why the eyelashes, why the lip injections, all that kind of stuff. So
It's not that they just look good. You want
they
that
have
area to
ability.
be seen.
Absolutely.
Focus on that.
If you think about the movies, what do they do when they're trying to track somebody else? They wink their lashes, right? I mean, literally, we're
Yeah.
taught and trained
Rub
that,
their
right?
eyes.
Cartoons
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah,
Yes.
bat your eyes.
Yes. So we talked about that. So now here's the fun part. Raise your eyebrows up. See a little bit of an Einstein line there. Squint down for us. You almost have
Doing it with
perfectionist-like
them.
tendencies, right? You have more than 2 lines, so everything's got to go in a certain place. One of the things I didn't talk about today, but we'll talk about, is you have the little laugh lines right here on the side of your nose, so you like to make people laugh as often as possible, right? So, yeah.
Even at her own expense.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
great.
Yeah,
I do.
yeah. High and wide cheeks. So we talked about you won't be the last one to leave, but you're going to stay out pretty late, right? Like you got, so cheeks are like gas gauges, where the farther they are from your nose, the
Shady's
longer
over
you
here
can keep
losing
going,
it.
right? So like you talked about when you walk into a room, well, even she's got the same, like well, look at where light's reflecting off her face, right? It's the high and wide cheeks that she has right now. You guys can't see her, but she's really there.
This is their first conference out with us here
Oh,
at
is
Black
it?
Diamond Club, so I have a feeling it's going to be a late.
Oh
night.
yes, oh yes, yeah. I have an 8 a.m. flight that I'm already suffering. I looked at her and like, when's the next flight? It's like 9 p.m. at night. I'm like, that one won't happen. So because I have to go to a buddy's 40th in Pensacola, so I was like, oh, I'll just drive it 8 hours. Like I said, I'm flying there. So anyway. So let's see. Okay. Question: your ears are pushed out low. Is that because of the hairband, or do they normally stick out a little?
No, this is probably normal.
That's probably normal. Okay, so ears stick out a little bit. So you have what's called diplomatic ears. They stick out more at the top, and they're closer to the ear in the back. So that's somebody who's figured out how to be very diplomatic in their work and personal life, like kind of not go with the flow because your ears aren't completely against your head, but you know when to push back and when not to.
Okay.
Right?
That's probably true.
Good strong chin. Don't have to walk on eggshells around you. Now here's the one, and I didn't talk about this today because you're one of the first ones I really saw with it. So when we were kids and we draw a smiley face, well, here I'll do it like this for everybody watching. So we did a smiley face and we did little notches on the smile, right?
Yeah.
Those are called secret lines. And so what that means is even though you say you're an overshare, you're kind of full because you these lines, these lines mean that you keep a lot that you think other people don't need to know this about me, and that's what creates those little lines right here. Is it's literally the muscles in your face telling you keep your mouth shut and not overshare, and it creates that line.
It's an internal battle with me. It's because I'm a Gemini. I want to share and I don't, and then at the same time I don't.
Like, this makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yes. So, and then of course, I'll ask you guys, since you sat in there and since you have one, what does this mean? Because you've got it too.
Affirmation line.
Verbal affirmation line. Sincere verbal compliments go a long way with you. Even though you have the title of doctor and everything else, a sincere thank you is what kind of like warms your heart. And that's what gets you right here.
Dr. Lindsay, you look so pretty.
Thank you. Flatter my eyes.
Yeah, there you go. See, now you got it. Yeah, so it's that simple. You just look at somebody, and of course, you can. Here's the advantage of it, and this is why it's a game changer. I could have done all that just by looking up on LinkedIn or social media and literally dissected your face. So y'all can't see it, but I'm going to show everybody here an example. I just did this for somebody the other day. They're like, hey, I got a client who's coming in. What do I do? So I go and I found their Instagram, and then I just send them what do each of the features mean.
Oh my god.
And so this is how I help companies and people figure out how to talk to a potential client.
Okay.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
So now let me shift this too, because actually this is where my head goes when we talk about this stuff, is talk about sales and things like that. Where my head goes is, and you mentioned kids.
Yes.
Like my kids. So that's going to be super cool for a lot of you and a lot of us on how to connect with our kids and verbalize and get engage with them on literally their level.
Yes, and because like we tend to talk like we think, but when you look at kids, you can look and say like, okay, is it larger ears, smaller eyes? You know, and so you look, and you just figure out what do I change to speak their language. So yes, with kids as well.
So you just went through some things with Dr. Lindsay. I know you've done Erica before too, but we can do that over again. But
Right.
you just did Dr. Lindsay. What are the first things? Kind of give us the map of what it is you're looking for. Eyebrows.
Sure. So my favorite's like top to bottom. You read people like you read a book, top to bottom, left to right. Why
Okay.
left to right? Personal side, professional side. So when you're looking at somebody, I go, can't always see their forehead. If they're looking straight on, you can't tell what shape it is. So I go eyebrow height, high or low. Higher eyebrow, people need more time. Lower eyebrow, get straight to the point. Then I go eye shape. Are they angled, straight, rounded? Excuse me. After that, I go upper eyelid. Then I go eye angle. Then it goes to noses. Noses can be a whole other thing because is it a wide nose? Is it a small nose? Is it a large nostril? Is it a short nostril? I didn't even get into nostrils today, but like
Very
if you have
little.
people go back, it literally your nostril is so crazy. If somebody's nostrils look like coin slots, Those are people who will do anything for you but hate it to be asked for money. And I've asked that question. So if it looks like you can literally and I'm going to date myself again, like you're going to the arcade and you're putting a quarter in or a token in,
for sure.
that's what it looks like. Those are people who will do anything for you but don't ask them for money. Or if they have pie shaped, then the easy way to remember it's my slice of pie. They're always thinking, I'm not sure I have enough. Where's my slice? What should I be doing to get my piece of the pie? So yes, it's crazy. Or if it's shaped kind of like my phone here and it looks like a credit card and their nostril like rectangular, then they're very conscious like what their money is and like how their credit is and
Okay.
So financially savvy. Yeah.
Intriguing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So all of these different features of the face, eyebrow height, length, bushiness, we've talked about, lines in the lips. So these are all things that he's looking for when he goes through this, whether it's a picture or whether you're talking to a client or on a stage, you can pick people out.
Right.
So let's go ahead and go. I'm gonna go last.
Look at that.
You
Going
are
ladies
going,
first.
though.
That's
Ladies
right.
first.
Look,
That's
even if he doesn't, we can talk later. I've already read his face, so we're good. Yeah.
But since we're on video, I'm gonna have you read Erica again.
Right. Okay, so we met Erica a year ago almost in Scottsdale, Arizona, right, at Steve Sims' private event.
Yep.
And
absolutely
for the
fabulous.
BDC private event, I guess I should say, but yes. So we'll start with the eyebrows, like we talked about. So rounded eyebrows. So
Husbands, this is good to know.
yes,
about
this
your
is very
wives.
good. Rounded eyebrows are people who think about the people around themselves first and themselves second. So that's one of the things we talked about with you before. The fact that you have a fuller upper eyelid, you're a we person, you want to do things with other people, right?
Yes.
And then what we talked about back then that you have the little verbal affirmation line. But the problem is you don't get that met when you're always so busy taking care of everybody else and making sure they're all taken care of, then you don't get what feeds you at the same time.
Yes.
And that's what made you cry.
That's what made me cry.
Right. And then because you smile, we see a little bit of above teeth, right? We see a little bit of gum. That's somebody who gives their all when they smile because you're not holding anything back, right? That's literally what your face says about you. And then we can get into the analytic part of your nose. Here's what hangs down. Or on your professional side, if you tilt back for the camera, you've got a larger nostril. So you're a bigger risk taker on your professional side than you are your personal side.
So true.
And then you have the talk lines here. So that's how you get to know people is through a good conversation
I
with
could talk
people.
to a wall.
Yeah, exactly. And eyes a little more forward versus recessed, right? And so you like to be included in things. So hence you volunteered in Arizona.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm such a FOMO human being.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
fear of missing out is real in me. I love being involved and doing all of the things.
Yes. See? So it's that simple. You just look at somebody's face and it's right there. So
And it was so incredible in Arizona when we were there. I was floored. I mean, like, my jaw hit the floor and I just could not. I felt the tears welling up. And then when he said what he did about giving your all and not expecting anything from anybody else, and then just like almost to the point where you give so much that you don't receive back, I lost it because me as a human being, that's what I do. I love to give, and having words of affirmation is my top. Like, I've taken the love languages test, and like words of affirmation is my top, and not getting that back or feeling like I am not getting it back, it's so crazy. And the fact that you were able to see that through my face was just flooring. And knowing that we can talk to people in this way and like connect with them on this level as opposed to just speaking to a person
right.
is so beautiful. And I love everything about it.
Again, not even so much from the sales aspect, but just socially. My biggest thing is like, I've never been the one. I was an athlete all my life. I was never the shit talker. I was never like, I never liked putting people down. I always liked to lift up. I didn't jab fun at anybody who was on the bench. I try to pick up, but knowing things like this, and the more people can learn about this faster, and the more people that can engage with Brian, it's going to help you so much to speak their language and
100%.
connect with people, especially after the past couple of years we've had,
Yes.
and bring this social, the social love and energy and
Back.
connectedness back.
Right.
That's really what it is for me too, because yes, we know each other's love languages too, but knowing some of those extras, I still don't default to practicing those all the time.
Right.
But then, like, when I snap out of it, it's like, oh yeah, look at
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
And something else that you said today that I thought was really awesome too to realize is that you not only can take this and utilize this while you're talking to people, but you can also realize when you say something wrong,
Yes.
which is super cool how you can actually
Yes.
see them retract.
Good point.
Right. So there's two things. If somebody says something, people literally try to distance themselves from it, right? They want to get away from it. So they'll physically distance. They'll use language of, Instead of saying Brian, they'll say, oh, well, that guy, or your company, distancing language. But then what happens is their lower eyelids are usually round. So if you think about, hey, I'm open for anything, but then as soon as they straighten out, and it's the lower ones right here, as soon as they straighten out, it's literally somebody screening you out. Because when we were kids, the way we blocked everything was like this, right?
Yeah.
And even now, if I took a rubber band and I pointed at anybody here, it's your eyes that close, right?
Yeah.
And you go to block your eyes. So that's when they say eyes are the windows to the soul. It's kind of true because it tells you more of what's going on. Because people have been taught, don't cross your arms, don't stick your hands in your pockets, don't do all these things.
Right.
But nobody said, don't shut your eyelid.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna turn it backwards.
I was gonna say, I was
here we
waiting.
go.
I was waiting to see if you were gonna stall your time out. I was waiting. I already had it there. I was waiting to see. All right. So first part we talked about, you have a brow ridge. So that's the very thick area right here. So that's somebody who wants to understand every step of the process. Step 1, 2, 3, 4. If I go from beginning to end and I leave out the middle, you're gonna go, nope. What's in there? We already talked about the fuller upper eyelid. So you like to do things together, right? Your eyebrows are very close to your eyes, so you understand things very fast. On top of, you have high ears. So you're like a double thread of, I can see and hear things fast. So if you imagine data trying to get into the center of your forehead, right? If your eyes or your eyebrows are low and your ears are high, then it comes in twice as fast as other people. So your big frustration with people, why don't they understand it as fast as I do, right? And then he's been smiling the whole time. You were talking about taking care of everyone, but you also have this little notch in your nose right here like I have, which is you were the nicest person until somebody backs you in the corner. F with her, F with her, F with them, and then they're going to have a problem with you, right?
Yeah.
But until then, be nice. Like there's a movie, it was like, be nice until it's time to not be nice. That's what that is right there. Right? We talked about noses are like umbrellas. So it's not the size of the nose, but using the microphone here. So if I took the mic up, right, it's where the nostrils flare out. So it's not always the size of the nose, but like how do the nostrils play a part of it? And so your nostrils go wide, and so it's like an umbrella. You're always doing things thinking, how can I help take care of other people? Very large nostrils. So somebody who has large nostrils like that, you tend to take on too much at times because you think, oh, I can do more. I can do more. I can do more, right?
Sounds familiar.
What would you say?
Right?
Cheney's sitting over there
Same
shaking
thing
her
when you
head.
smile, you see a little bit of gum, right? So that's you give your all when you're doing it, right? Then you have a deep verbal affirmation line right here. So that's the sincere compliments, not, hey, thanks, thank you for something specific. It goes a long way with you as well. And then your ears stick out, so you like to push back on how everybody else does things, right? So ears are like wind drag. So if a plane, the reason they're aerodynamic, right, is because they have flat angles. So if your ears were close, you just go with the flow. But if your ears push out, you like to push back on how everybody else does something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds like you.
So, and here's what's interesting, because it's not that it's wrong. I love to know every step, and you might find this interesting, or you might be able to tell something. Well, this makes sense. But so every step, I want to know every step. So I race on Friday, Saturday nights, I race dirt track and stuff. And so, but I love okay, here's the car, here's step A, here's what it needs to look like.
Right.
And I do want to know all the components. Where do I get this? Where does that go? Where does it? But I need point A. I need to know where I'm starting and what it needs to be before I get to that point. Like if I go step by step, it's like, okay, first you paint this, but then you put the front end. No. I need to know the whole thing.
Right.
And then give it all to me.
Right.
So
Yeah, you need to know. So but I couldn't just go, hey, we're going to get you a car, and then a car shows up, right? You have to be involved in the process. Some people are just, they're happy in a transaction, right? Like, hey, I'm going to buy this, it's going to show up. Other people are like, whoa, wait, what do I need to be involved with it? So for example, if I was a realtor and I was working with you on something, I would say, okay, hey, we're going to start the loan process. We're going to get you the house. That's what you want. But in the meantime, here's the steps I'm going to need you involved in the process with,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Instead of just, some people are like, hey, I want a home. Okay, good, I'll get you a home. And that's it.
Yeah.
So you need to be involved in the process once you know what your goal and your target is.
Yeah, perfectionist. What about the
Yeah.
line in the center of my?
Oh, squint. Yeah, you've got more than 2. So if you have more than 2, it's perfectionist-like tendencies.
What was the other one about a freight train?
Freight train, you'll see one that's a solid line like down here. Literally looks like their forehead's cut in half, like just a deep, deep line right here.
Yeah.
And when you see that, that's somebody's called a freight train line. So once they make up their mind, just get the hell out of their way, because it's like being run over by a freight train. So it's, if a freight train's coming from you, you can stand in front of it and get hit, or you can get on board and try and steer it. Yes.
Yeah. Erica gets frustrated with me a lot too, because I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's go. So as soon as
And I'm a top.
I think my eyebrows are connected to my eyelashes. Got
did that
it. I
fast.
heard you. Did it next.
Right.
I'm so long-winded with my answers for him. He's like, next thing. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
hadn't even finished my sentence.
I was like, I'm already there. I'm already with you
Right.
next.
We're on the same board. Let's go. Yeah. So
Super good. Well,
Yeah.
Anything we can do for you, or anything that our listeners can do, or anything you need, or what you're looking
Sure.
for? Or?
Always like followers, right?
Absolutely.
Subtle Skills is everything. Subtleskills.com. On Instagram, if you want to learn more, that's where I post everything's on my Instagram, Subtle Skills. I want to hear more people who use this and get feedback from it. I know it works, but I want to hear that it works, because the whole thing is, just because it's worked for me doesn't mean I can't take input from other people. What worked, what didn't. It's not anything I made up, but it's something I learned. And part of learning is continuously learning, right? You guys take CEs every year. You didn't just go through it and you're done. So I'm always looking for feedback. What worked for people? What didn't work for people? Yeah.
So I know we're going to share the link that has your free stuff.
Right.
Is there a link in there too on how to engage with you a little deeper?
Oh,
Another
absolutely.
Offer in there as well? Or?
Yeah. Oh, I have an online course. I do.
Okay.
I've got where people can pay and say, hey, I'll send you a picture, analyze it like the one that I've got here. I work with corporations, team building, team bonding, sales, customer service. The only thing I haven't gotten into is HR. And the reason why is I never want somebody to not get a position because of what's on their face. But somebody gave me the opposite side of that is, but how bad is a bad hire? But I'm like, yeah, but I feel like the greater good is let the person try.
Right.
And then you do the team building, team bonding after the fact instead of the judgment up front.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Treat them as a person first, find what they're good at, and then lead them correctly
Absolutely.
through the process.
Yep.
Awesome. Well,
right.
super grateful that you were here with us.
Yes.
Excited to continue our relationship further. Hope everybody enjoyed. See ya.